Welcome, my friends, to the End Time Church. I am Pastor Manti, your humble servant and brother in the Lord. I hope I'm your brother in the Lord. If you don't know him, today is the day. Today is the day of salvation. And I welcome each and every one of you to our service. Yes, this is a real church full of real people of God. And you are all my brothers and sisters, just like if we were talking face-to-face in person. So welcome all. Please chime in, especially if you're on the endtime.church site. Fill out a name for yourself and get to chatting and say hello to all your friends around the world, literally. Shalom to Matthew, to Kim, to Jeff. They're already checking in on the site. Apologies in advance. Pastor Anderson had a minor emergency today where he just couldn't get home in time to do things. So pray for him, but everything's fine. But that's why you don't see him tonight. And Sister Taryn is actually taking care of her husband. Not taking care of him, it's his birthday. So you got to have birthday celebrations now and then, right? So praise God, they are enjoying each other's company today. And thank you, friends. Yes, we do got this. It's not a problem. And so, again, feel free to check in with especially if you're in a different country. I do love to hear about that. See how far we are reaching out tonight, because we are on Facebook and YouTube as well as our own site. So let us know where you're from. If you've ever watched a service before, if you never have, let us know that, and we'd be happy to welcome you, give you virtual hugs. And if we can pray for you in any way, of course, feel free to say so. But we do want to get right into it today. We do actually have a contact form built in to our website. If you go to the endtime.church site and hit the prayer button right there on the live video, there's a link that you can fill out any contact that you wanted to make with us, and we will get back to you. The whole team of folks will be alerted to your prayer request or contact. And so that's definitely a cool thing to take advantage of. And of course, we have the playlist button as well, which goes back a couple months worth of messages back to the book of Daniel. Every chapter, we've got Pastor Anderson on their messages. We've got Al Fadi. Special guest, Jake McCandless. Pastor Jake stopped in, remember, in September. And so I've got all that if you just hit the playlist button. And of course, we have a YouTube channel. It goes all the way back. 3.5 years plus. 3.5 years to when we started this online church together. And so, yeah, before COVID and before everyone was doing online church, we did it. And of course, that's all the Lord, right? So take advantage of that. And we have an app, by the way. Go get the app right now. It's free. Go to your Apple App Store or Google Play Store for your Android device, or right there on your computer for your laptop or desktop, whatever. Just type in app.endtime.church. It'll take you directly to your store or your place where you can get the app and use it. Please use it. Many folks just get it and just let it sit there. I don't understand that. Take advantage of it. Your family is there 24/7. And it's, get away from antichrist social media, right? Always complaining about Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or this and that, not letting you do this and that. So use End Time Church. Be with Christians. That's what it's there for, okay? A lot of groups there you can join, and discipleship meetings and all that awesome stuff. Private messenger built into that so we can have conversations, private groups, all that stuff. It's all in there. So go with the app, all right? Thank you. Yes, like Sister Susanna says, get the app. That's all you need to know. All right. Good evening. Benjamin's checking in. The app is awesome. I just want to put that one up there. There you have it. You don't need to listen to me. All right. Oh, Sis Micah. Love that. Hello, Micah. All right. Anyway, folks, we love you a whole bunch. So let's get right into it. We ask for a word of wisdom from the Father. Lord, be with us all right now. Many of us are experiencing many stresses, many feeling a bit overcooked or underdone or whatever, And at the same time, we know that there's nothing unique about what we're going through. This age is certainly has its challenges, but at the end of the day, we have a lot in common with every believer who's ever lived. And even with you, Lord Jesus, you went through it all, and you understand You are a high priest who understands every temptation that we have. So be with us now. Speak powerfully, Holy Spirit, to and through me and everyone who is watching this now or later. In Jesus' name, Yeshua, the Messiah of Israel and of all who believe. Amen. All right, let's go, guys. So if you haven't been watching Daniel, the series that we've been doing, we've covered every single verse in this book. Chapter 1 all the way through. So now we're up to what I would consider the most it's exciting, really maybe isn't the right word, but as a Bible student, as someone who, like you, is discerning the times, right? And we're kind of approaching these days, and we really have a burning desire or a need to know what the Word of God actually says, so we can be adequately ready, prepared to do the Great Commission, to face every temptation, to face the evil one, and all his bag of tricks and empires that he'll get to use and persecutions, etc. So we want to know, right? We're all united in that, and we're all united at End Time Church at every level. Everything I do at Wings of the Eagle, everything Pastor Randy does at Iron Faith Fellowship, everything that we are involved in, it always revolves around the supremacy of the Word of God over anyone else's. There's not even a contest, right? Doesn't matter who's teaching what or who says what. The Word of God is our standard, and is our proof text. It is our everything. So everything that you've heard to this point and tonight and going forward is all with that in mind. So I hope you, even if it's new to you or a new angle on things that maybe you've never heard or maybe you've never considered, that you would give the benefit of the doubt in that, just like you, hopefully, we give absolute authority to the written Word of God. There's no two ways about it. We would never teach any other way. Whether it's Chris Anderson, myself, again, Pastor Randy, or anyone else who we've ever had on these airwaves agrees. Okay. All righty. So with that in mind, let's go. This chapter is so, again, exciting. It's tangible. It's tangible. I could remember years ago as a young kid, trying to make sense of this book and this chapter. Like, I don't get it. Welp. I think part of that is exactly what we're titling this for, which is confounding the whys of this world. And as Paul would say in his epistles, if someone among you thinks he is wise in this age, in this world, let him become foolish so that he can become wise. For the wisdom of this age is foolishness with God. And that's got to be our starting point. This book, this theme, this everything that we've done in Daniel is because I believe the Holy Spirit is leading us to this one singular conclusion, which is the wise virgins, those who will be wise in the end, must know what God has revealed to Daniel, the prophet. It's just not acceptable to not know. Not even try, right? Not good. So let us become fools in that way. Let's say, you know what? I don't know a darn thing. I know nothing except Christ and him crucified and whatever he wants to teach me. So that's what this is all about. All right. So like we put in the app as a warning tonight, warning. You will be presented with the following two radical considerations. So even if you believe otherwise, if you've been taught otherwise, if you teach otherwise, just ask for grace in these considerations, okay? Consideration number one, and yes, as always, I hope you know that there's been a lot of prayer and waiting for confirmations on these things. Be that as it may. Number one, first radical consideration is that the radical futurist interpretation of the text is what you will be presented with tonight. What does that fancy word mean? It means Daniel 11 is all future to us today. That's what we would call the radical futurist interpretation. The standard, traditional futurist, which is, yes, some of it is obviously in the future. At some point in the text, it's talking about a time that has not occurred yet because Jesus said it was in the future. We pretty much are united in that, no matter who you talk to in this day and age. But to say it's all future to us today is radical in that it's complete, it's total, it's committed, right? Okay. Number two, Jesus gives this book, this chapter of Daniel 11, he gives it to us, consider this, as the final piece of the puzzle, of the prophetic puzzle. In other words, look in here, in this chapter specifically, really, look in here to find, when he says wars and rumors of wars and the kingdom against kingdom that we're all familiar with, when he says what the signs are of his coming, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, look here for those. Consider that. All right, so let's go right into consideration number one. This radical futurist interpretation of the text. All right, foundation of what we're about to start with is the foundation, which is, first thing to remember is chapters 10, 11, and 12 are actually not three different chapters in the text. It is one giant revelation or vision from or to Daniel. Chapters and things like that were added after the fact. We know that. We should know that. So there is no division between 10 and 11 and 11 and 12. It's just one continuous revelation, right? So with that in mind, the context for all of this final revelation, and this is the final revelation to Daniel. And before, now that I say that, yes, if you're looking like a Catholic Bible or, some older Bibles, sometimes you have extra chapters in Daniel. Not legit, okay? Not legit. Those were added after. But the point is, this is the final revelation, 10 through 12. So the context for what we're about to read tonight in 11 is from chapter 10, what we did last week. And it says, as far as I could tell, everything in chapter 11 is about the last days, because the angel who sent it to Daniel said so. 10:14, I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the last days or latter days. For the vision refers to many days yet to come. And that's the New King James. And we'll be reading that primarily tonight, but also look at the CSB version of that same verse. What will happen? I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the last days. For the vision refers to those days. Right? So if we're going to go there and believe this is kind of similar to Daniel 8, okay, which we've already covered obviously at length, and we hope we understand what the context of that was, which is the same thing, the last days. So if it's the angels telling Daniel directly, these are about the last days, and the vision refers to those days, it's kind of cut and dry. It lends itself to the radical futurist interpretation, because he doesn't say some of this is, in the near future to you, and some of it's in the far future. It's all in the far future. So if it refers only to the last days or end times, what we call the end times, by definition, it means it's not about the ancient past. And by the way, it says to your people in the last days. That means Israel and the Jews, or / the Jews, Israel, is always the driver. It's always the point It's always the center of everything you're going to read. So we'll be reading a good bit about, kings of north and south and all that stuff. And folks want to fly off the handle and make it all about some other geography. It's not. Israel's the center, right? All righty. All right, so if you're ready, let's go with chapter 11, verse 1. And we covered a little bit of this at the end of last week. And go with me here. We're not going to finish this chapter tonight. It's just not going to work out because I only got halfway through and we've got a whole bunch of a lot of slides here. All right, let's go. Chapter 11, verse 1. The first year of Darius, I stood, right? When it says, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. Who I, the angel, from the beginning of Darius's reign, the first year of Darius. Well, what happened in the first year of Darius? Daniel chapter 9, verse 1 says that happened in the first year of Darius. And what happened there? Daniel got his 70 weeks prophecy. So for some reason, the angel brings that up. Why? Why? Because it still matters. I mean, it's still relevant to what Daniel's about to hear, is the point. I stood up to protect him, to make sure I could get that message to you. Basically, I, the angel, stood to provide strength and protection for him. Against what? Stood against what? Provide protection against what? As we said last week, the principality over Persia. The principality over Persia is a fallen angel, okay? It's in the heavenly realm. It's not a demon on the earth, per se. It's in the heavenlies. Again, we talked about this last time. Against the principality over Persia, who wants to either, defending him against something, either he wants to stop God's timetable completely, this principality, or he wants to prematurely advance it. Consider that, okay? It's not just that the enemy always wants to, trip up and destroy God's plans, which a lot of times he does, and they do. But other times they want to advance it beyond where it should be. Not time for that yet. Not time for that yet. They wanted to, right? The disciples wanted to make Jesus king and make, that says the people wanted to make him become king right then. He knew it wasn't time for that. Verse 2. Now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up the whole realm against the realm of Greece. Yavan. Now I will tell you the truth, it says, i.e. the truth that came to what? He came to give Daniel. I'm going to tell you now the truth. Just some random thing, right? No, this is why I came to you. This is what is going to happen to your people in the last days from the book of truth. It's in the end of the last chapter, right? From the book of truth. This is the truth. This is that truth. It's about Israel. It's about the last days, and it's about Daniel 9 somehow. And the truth is this. The details Daniel's about to be told, what will happen before and during that same 70th week he was told about in chapter 9. That's what we're going to see. Verse 2 again, where it says 3 more kings of Persia. What does that mean? This is not the prince of Persia, angelic principality thing. This is a king of Persia. These are men. So he's saying at some point, there's going to be a starting point, and then there's going to be 3 more human kings of Persia, leaders of the nation called Persia or Iran. And then the 4th will be the one to attack the realm of Yavan. And I'm not going to say Greece. I'm never going to say Greece because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's not in there. So that's real information now. Now we're getting to the real stuff. God is being so specific he is putting his reputation on the line. That's how specific it is. And even now, even today, even with a partial future interpretation, even with a interpretation that puts all Daniel 11 in the past, and some do, even that, you still get charges of, this can't be real. This can't be in advance of the events, because they're so specifically told. Right? The denial of God and the power of God is just so ingrained that no one could even admit that God would say such a thing, because it's so detailed. Must have been after the fact. That's what's led to this whole erroneous view, in my opinion, of putting it in the past anyways. Because it was so detailed, it must be, we must be able to look at it as a already fulfilled, or already occurring. As we'll hopefully see, it just doesn't read like that. Okay, so we've got 3 more leaders, human leaders of Iran. At some point, there will be a countdown, okay? And then the 4th one will be the one to actually attack the realm, or the, geography of Yavan, the kingdom of Yavan, or the end times. What's Yavan today? It's Turkey, basically. So it's going to attack Turkey. We've read this already. Haven't we? Yes, we have. In chapter 8. It's identical, as a matter of fact. Chapter 8, verse 4. With additional details about the number of Persian kings for timing's sake, right? Because in Daniel 8:4, it doesn't say that there will be 3 more. Here's the kicker, and just as a teeny bit of evidence, for example, one of the reasons why I don't think we can put this in the past is because there were not 3 more kings after Daniel was told this. There was 12. And even if you want to quibble about that number, some names were the same and they were called similar things, but they were the same person. Okay, it was still more than 3 and 4. It's not historically accurate to say there was only 3 more kings after Daniel in Persia. Not true. God doesn't do that. Agreed? He's just not going to do that. Not going to tell something that ain't true, which is exactly the same argument that one would use and should use in Daniel 8 itself, because this is going to come up again now real quick, is that the empire of Alexander the Great, yes, it was divided into 4. That's obviously Alexander's 4 generals. No, it ain't. It didn't happen like that. So you can't say that was Alexander's generals. So, guys, it's so bad. In Daniel 8 and 11, it's so bad that some Bibles, like the Amplified, I love the Amplified Bible. It's awesome a lot of times. But come on. If you look at Daniel 11 and the Amplified, it will just blatantly put in historical names and figures, Alexander the Great, into the text. It's ridiculous. Anyway, okay, so we really, the text doesn't allow that right now. It's just giving us facts or giving us suppositions, believe it or not, right? God is saying this. Well, history doesn't back that up right now. Verse 3 again, when it says, the mighty king who was given great dominion, a mighty king will arise. Then a mighty king shall arise who shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. Mighty king of Yavan with a great dominion. That's the same thing, the same language, the same everything as the large horn of the goat in Daniel 8, 5-8. We're not going to go cover it, but go look at it. Right? I mean, we can't, it's silly just to dismiss it and say, that's just similar, but it's really talking about something else. No, it's not. It's meant to remind us. It's meant to draw our attention to it. This happens in all over the Bible, but it's, even within Daniel itself. There's several times where you're going to be brought back to similar words or phrases. The abomination of desolation is not just in one place. It's in several chapters, right? For the same purpose. This is important, guys, God is saying. And I'm not going to fool around and mess with your brain and not tell you when it is. I'm going to tell you the same thing over and over again so you get it. When you see this, now you know. Okay. Let's go to verse 4. And when he has arisen, who? The mighty king, this great horn of Yavon. When he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and divided towards the four winds of heaven, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion in which he ruled, for his kingdom will be uprooted even for others besides these. Well, let's parse this a little bit. When he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up. Now listen to this, toward the four winds, but look at the NLT translation. His kingdom will be broken apart and divided into four parts. That's the same as what happens in the great horn's kingdom in Daniel 8:8. So now, to someone who's really just taking it at face value, for if we're really going back to the basics, if we're really just saying, you know what, I'm not going to have any suppositions or opinions on this. I'm just going to read what it says. And I already read chapter 8, so I know what that says. And now I'm going to read this again with no preconceived notion. How could you not, it's the same, right? There are some details that are given in chapter 11 and not chapter 8. And then there are some details in chapter 8 that are not given in chapter 11, but it doesn't mean they're different things. Doesn't mean they're different times. Like we didn't hear about the three kings yet to rise in Persia, and then the fourth would attack Yavan. We didn't hear that in Daniel 8. Just like now in 11, we didn't technically hear that there's four kingdoms coming out towards the four winds, but that's implied. It's already saying, look, you just read about this in 8. This is what it's talking about. So, I mean, I'm with the NLT on this. It says four winds because it means four kingdoms, four parts, right? All right. When it says not according to his prosperity, no, I misspelled that. That's a posterity or kingdom. Posterity meaning his descendants, his children, or his family, or kingdom. And again, that's the same description of the large horn's removal in Daniel 8:22. It's not going to be typical, well, this guy died, now his son's going to take over. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be ripped away from him and given to, this is a whole new thing now. When it says, again, the four winds divided towards the four winds are broken up. Again, what four winds means four directions. It's not a random thing. Think of it just very physically, right? It's very much like a wind that's blowing in your face. You say, well, where is it coming from? Is that a northerly wind, southerly, easterly, or westerly wind, right? Where is it coming from? Where is it blowing to? Those are the 4 points of the compass, north, south, east, and west. When it says the four winds, it means the four directions. In other words, now this is a little revelation in the meaning, right? When it says, if there's a kingdom that's broken into four parts towards the four winds of heaven, that's another way of saying there will be four new kingdoms: a kingdom of the north, of the south, of the east, and of the west. New kings of those places. Doesn't it? All right. And then when it says his kingdom will be uprooted for others, in other words, other kings, not for himself, not for even his own family or countrymen, even per se. Okay, you're going to actually divide up into other areas. No, other kings. Okay, other kings that are not from your tribe. Eventually, it means the 10 kings. What do I mean? Daniel 7. Verses 7 to 8 and then 24. Why does it say? Because it says it's uprooted and given to others. He says the little horn uproots 3 of the 4. Same language, same stuff. All right. Now, button your hatches, buckle your safety belts. Radical info tidbit number 1. Radical info. We just are covering the same story up till Daniel 8:8 now. Daniel 8:8 and 8:9. Between those 2 verses, if we're going to layer these prophecies together, and so far I think that's absolutely what we should be doing. Between Daniel 8:8 and 8:9, you insert Daniel 11:4 to 20. That's the supposition. That's the radical interpretation. That's the radical futurist understanding, because I'm just going to read it for a second. Daniel 8:8 to 8:9. So we've come up to this point. Therefore, the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in its place, 4 notable ones came up towards the 4 winds of heaven. We're there. In Daniel 11, we are there. 8:9 says, and out of one of them, one of those 4 directions, one of those kings of north, south, east, or west, came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great towards the southeast and towards the glorious land, Israel. We haven't gotten there yet in Daniel 11. We have got a long way to go to get there. But the radical info is, yes, between those 2 verses, we can actually insert Daniel 11:4 through 20. Let's go to verse 5. Also, the king of the south shall become strong. Now, that's a new character, as well as one of his princes, and he shall gain power over him and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. King of the south. Now, remember, we have 4 new directions with kingdoms. That means we have a king, and a kingdom of the south and east and west and north. Makes sense. That now we have a king of the south. The king of the south is Egypt. I'm just going to spoil that one, okay, because we are told directly it is Egypt in verse 8 and in verse 42 and in verse 43. Now, you can say, well, it's the individual king isn't named Egypt. No, of course, he will be a man, but the kingdom itself is represented, not represented, it is an Egyptian kingdom. The king of the south is Egypt. And the point is, and we're going to see through these several verses here, that he must be subdued, Egypt must be subdued by the king of the north in order to become the final piece of the beast. Verse 6. And at the end of some years, again, we're going to be, the source for me at this point is the New King James, so I'll be reading from that initially every time. At the end of some years, they shall join forces, but for the daughter of the king of the south shall go to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of her authority. Neither he nor his authority shall stand, but she shall be given up with those who brought her, and with him who begot her, and with him who strengthened her in those times. Whew, what a mouthful. This leads to some confusion. Sure it does. I'm like, what the heck is that talking about? All right, let's parse this one now. At the end of some years, the word some is not in the text. It literally says at the end of years. Now that's a horse of a different color. Sorry, I'm going to have to be taking some liquid rejuvenation here. At the end of some years is the end of years, meaning either during the final years of the age, at the end of years, that's the end of days, that's the final years, the end times, could just mean that. Or after some time. In other words, it's ambiguous. Even, trust me, I look at this very closely. Don't trust me. Go do your own research on this. Go look up these terms. But it's ambiguous. Even if it means literally years, which it doesn't have to, but even if you take it to mean years, it's still ambiguous. It says some years. Why not 5 years? Why not 10 years? Why not 20 years? Why not 1 year? It's ambiguous on purpose, but to me, it's what it doesn't mean, what it can't mean is something longer, like decades or centuries, obviously. Oh, now we're in the make no sense category. Why give a prophecy that, you know what I mean? Why say some years when you mean 20, 30, 40, 50, 200? No, I don't think God would do that. Okay, and what it says, the daughter of the king of the south, or KOS, king of south. The daughter of the king of the south. It's either going to be a literal woman in an arranged marriage to the king of the north. Could be just that simple. Again, we're looking for this in the future now. Or possibly, now here's something to think about. It could be a reference not to a literal woman, but who is a daughter of Egypt. Hagar. Bible here now, guys. Bible, okay? Don't take it out of the scriptures. God, again, the Lord won't do that to us. If it's a prophetic thing, he's going to be referring to other books of the Bible. So if we have a daughter of Egypt, that has to be Hagar. And what do we hear about Hagar in the New Testament? Galatians 4:25 says Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. Whoa. Wait a minute. So the daughter of the king of the south could be Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia? I'm not going to bet money on it, but yeah, it could be. Now now we're talking spiritual realm, like or understanding. Not an actual woman, a girl being married off, but now we're talking about who has control of Mount Sinai. Now we're talking about Northwest Arabia all of a sudden. That's right next to Egypt. That could be under their protection. Just consider these things, friends. Abraham Accords I have with a question mark. Could that have to do with this? Like they want to join the Abraham Accords with Israel. They want to make peace. So is this like an offering towards that goal? I don't know. But again, it's worth considering, especially if this is future, if it's coming up to us, right? Okay, when it says power and authority, or his authority or her authority, that when you see authority, it means arm. Literally, it means arm. Arm usually means military power or military control. In other words, somebody's going to lose their military power over something or control over something. Negotiated end of the House of Saud, I say. In other words, Saudi Arabia, that's the kingdom, the ones who are in control now of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's just Arabia with a ruling family. Maybe they put an end to that. Maybe a lot of people don't like the ruling family of Saudi Arabia. Did you know? Yes, a lot don't like it, especially other Muslims. Okay, other Arabs, the Turks, the Persians. They're not into this royal family business. So again, this is possible. Yes, I also say see Jeremiah 46 for basically an entire chapter about Egypt versus the northern kingdom and the tensions between them, because it reverberates. All right, for sure. All right, let's go to radical info slide number 2. Consider this. Daniel 11:2, what we just read about the 3 more kings in Persia, etc., through 11:30, which we haven't got to yet. But these wars that we're going to be hearing about, the invasion of Yavon attacks back, there's new 4 kingdoms, and now there's a king of the north versus the king of the south, and all these conflicts, those are the wars and rumors of war that Jesus told us are the initial signs of his coming. But what does he say after that? This is the very beginning of when he tells the apostles, the disciples, the signs of the times when he's going to return. Take care, no one deceives you. And then there'll be wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. So this is going to be a time before the end, but yet in the end times. So what is that about? Daniel 11 can explain that perfectly. These wars and rumors of wars, not random wars and rumors of wars, not World War I and World War II or the Cold War, which I have been taught that, okay? I've not only heard it out there and on YouTube, this is years and years ago. I was taught that specifically. These are the rumors of wars and wars. No. Nope. That's not Israel-centric. That's not verifiable. That's not biblical. That's not Middle Eastern. But this would be. This would be. And the end is not yet, because there's more right after it. And verses 2 to 21 specifically, now that take a slice of between 2 and 30, now narrow it down between 2 and 21, that section does occur still in the end times, but before the Antichrist appears and before the 70th week begins. God included this information, friends, for a reason. Again, if we consider that, yes, that maybe, if we consider, we go on the mental exercise that Daniel 11 is all future, we see these wars occurring, and then an Antichrist shows up, and then the 70th week starts. All these things are in this chapter. And it's for a reason. Okay, let's go 7 to 10. But from a branch of her roots, let me not confuse anyone. From a branch of her roots, the one who went from the south to the north, one shall arise in his place, who shall come with an army, enter the fortress of the king of the north, and deal with them and prevail. And he also shall carry their gods captive to Egypt. So the southern power is Egypt, with their princes and their precious articles of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So we've got, again, power struggles. Also, the king of the north shall come to the kingdom of the king of the south, but shall return to his own land. However, his sons shall stir up strife and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through, and then he shall return to his fortress and stir up strife. I guess let's stop there for a second. All right. Verse 7 to 10, what do we see? Escalating power struggle and physical conflicts between these two powers. Now, this kingdom of the north and this kingdom of the south. When it says sons of strife in verse 10, to me, if we're looking forward, who causes strife? It would be terrorism in Egypt. The sons of strife will go to Egypt to try to strike at the government there, or this southern kingdom. You could call them sons of the caliphate, okay, because maybe somebody's not cooperating. They want their own thing, whereas the northern kingdom wants a united kingdom. And so that would be organized, of course, from the north. It says, from the north come these sons of strife. A la ISIS. Why do I say a la ISIS? Because this is exactly how ISIS did it. It had support from the kingdom of the north. It had the Turkish support the whole time. And for a long time, Turkey would never deal with them. They were arming them. They were letting them come into the country and go to hospitals. It's ridiculous. Even to this day, they're not worried about ISIS. They're worried about the Kurds, right? So I think it's like that. See Zechariah chapter 6, verse 6 to 7, and Revelation 6:6. Why those places? Because, for example, in Zechariah 6, it talks about the horses, the four colored horses that are going through as spirits from heaven to the earth into geographic areas. The black horses go to the north country, the kingdom of the north, and the white follow them. So the white are like their acolytes or something. They're being protected by them. They are being nurtured by them. They're being sent by them even. That's Zechariah 6. Go read it. Revelation 6. Again, what is Revelation 6:6? We have a time of the black horses, and then there's an economic trouble, and everyone's trying to figure things out. And if there's terrorism in the Middle East, there's going to be a lot of economic problems. I think this is all the time between the third and fourth seals or horses, after the black, but before the final. And what's the final one? The fourth seal or the fourth horse is the actual covenant with death and Sheol. That's Revelation 6. That's the beginning of the last 7 years. That's the fourth part of that. The kingdom, the part that really is being difficult, is Egypt. So they need to conquer that. They need to do something about that. All right, let's go to verse 11 through 16. And the king of the south shall be moved with rage, and go out to fight with him, with the king of the north, who shall muster a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given to the hand of his enemy. When he has taken away the multitude, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cast down tens of thousands, but he will not prevail. For the king of the north will return and muster a multitude greater than the former, and he shall certainly come at the end of some years. That's the same phrase again, the end of years. With a great army and much equipment. Now, in those times, in those days, many shall rise up against the king of the south. So now it's many, not just one, mean guy in Turkey. Also, violent men of your people. Speaking to Daniel, who's Daniel's people? Israel. Violent men of your people shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and build a siege mound and take a fortified city, and the forces of the south shall not withstand him. Even his choice troops shall have no strength to resist. But he who comes against him shall do according to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land with destruction in his power. Wow. Okay. Verse 14, when it says violent men, it means literally sons of breakage. Sons of breakage. Again, what can that mean? Escalating terror attacks. When many shall rise up against the king of the south. So many now, right? Not just one individual or king or even kingdom, but many now are coming against Egypt, including Jews from Israel. It says, this is kind of interesting to consider, to fulfill the earlier vision. What? Every time this thing even comes up, it's chapter 9. It's the 70 weeks. This is very interesting to think about. In other words, this could be saying that there are actually Jewish people in Israel who will attack Egypt because they believe they can bring the Messiah in Daniel 9. They think it's time now for the Messiah, and they can do this if they just defeat Egypt. Maybe. And support for the North's leadership now is building for a unified government, not four parts. The way I read this, it's saying we don't want four parts anymore. The Egypt is holding out. Doesn't want in. But it's growing. Verse 16, when it says the glorious land, he will come, the king of the north, stand in the glorious land with destruction in his power. Obviously, the glorious land is the land of Israel itself. How do we know that? See Daniel 8, verse 9. See verse 41 of this same chapter 11, where it calls Israel the same thing. See Psalm 106, 24, where it says the same thing. It's obviously Israel. It's not some mystical location, okay? This king of the north that we read of in this verse is not the Antichrist. He's a predecessor. He's a predecessor who will actually, it seems from this text, to have a chance to invade Israel, or maybe even to offer the final covenant, the final 7-year deal. Maybe he's ready to do it before the time, right? As we said earlier, that's a problem when you try to get things done before the time actually is ready. Let's go to verse 17 through 20, I guess. Okay. And he shall also set his face to enter. So this is, again, this king of the north now on Israel's doorstep. He shall set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and the upright ones with him. Thus he shall do. And he shall give him the daughter of women to destroy it, but she shall not stand with him or before him. After this, he shall turn his face to the coastlands and shall take many of them. But a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end, and with the reproach removed, he shall turn back on him. Then he shall turn his face towards the fortress of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Again, pretty complicated it could be, but let's check it out. When it says the upright ones with him, literally means to bring equitable terms. When it says he will form an alliance with the king of the south in order to overthrow the kingdom from within, this is the New Living Version, New Living Translation, he will form an alliance with the king of the south in order to overthrow the kingdom from within, but his plan will fail. So he's still trying to upend Egypt to get them on board with the one kingdom thing, but they're not buying it still. It's going to fail because it's not time. And so when it says to bring equitable terms, I think he's trying to do the covenant with Israel, but he knows he needs Egypt to do it. Then it says he goes back and conquer the coastlands. When it says the coastlands, that's the actual location of the sons of Yavon. Look at Genesis 10. The Mediterranean areas basically are invaded and overtaken. Look at Cyprus. That's practically done already. Look at the coastlines of Lebanon and even, yes, Greece, and even the coasts of Syria, even maybe further into the western part of the Mediterranean. But it says a commander from another land. That when it says how did it put it here in this one? A ruler shall bring the reproach. A foreign ruler. It's a leader from another land will stop their advance. In other words, kept in the Middle Eastern sphere. So God will not allow this king of the north to conquer Europe. Okay. To me, that's what it's saying. It's going to stop. Now look at verse 19. What does it say? He will turn his face to the fortress of his own land, but there he will stumble and fall, not be found. I think he will return to his kingdom in the north, or Turkey, in failure, because he didn't unite the kingdom. He didn't unite the caliphate. He still has Egypt holding out, or make peace with Israel. So he failed on both counts. And so he either is deposed or he dies. He doesn't make it out alive. Okay. That's it. Now we come to the real guts of it here. All these back and forths and all these machinations and all these battles and north and south, blah, blah, blah. There shall arise in his place, the one who just died or was deposed, this king of the north who failed. The one who imposed, by the way, this reminds me, remember when Jesus said there will be many false Christs? And many antichrists, as John would say. Okay, listen up. We got to perk up here. We've had many kings of the north, potentially, at least a few. There shall arise in his place, the king of the north's place, one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, not in anger or in battle. What does that mean? Simply, in his place will be the one to send out a tax collector in the glory of the kingdom. CSB translation, I like that better. Will arise who will send out a tax collector for the glory of the kingdom. It's an attempt to oppose a kingdom-wide tax. What do you call that in a caliphate? It's called the jizya. Jizya. If you don't know about how caliphates work or about how Islamic law works, go check it out. The jizya tax without a unified kingdom. I think that's what we're looking at, right? He's trying to cover the bases without Egypt. But this one he's overthrown quickly, or maybe God just gives him a heart attack or whatever, but he's out fast. And now he's replaced with someone else. And in his place, this jizya guy, the tax collector guy, in his place shall arise a vile person, to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. Let's look at that closely. ESV is the best, I think, on this. He is a contemptible person to whom royal majesty has not been given. He shall come in without warning and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. The word flatteries there means slipperiness, or being like a silver-tongued salesman or a deceiver. Friends, this is the last and greatest king of the north. This is the little horn. This is the Antichrist. Verse 21. Again, I understand there's other opinions, there's other teachings on this, but there's really no other way around this. He is the last one. And by the way, for those looking for an Antichrist from the United Nations or from the United States or from Russia or from God knows where else, the Bible tells you he can only come from modern-day Turkey, Syria, or northern Iraq. That's the north. That's the kingdom of the north. And by the way, that would also make him the Assyrian and Gog of Magog. Assyria, Magog, king of the north, the land of the north in Zechariah. It's all the same locations. Don't look for the Antichrist from any other place in the world. And no, it's not a spiritual name, okay? It's an actual literal place where he's from. Sorry, Barack Obama is not going to win this contest, okay? The Pope is not going to win this. No. He's from there. And by the way, see the same description in Daniel 8:23-25 about the little horn. Contemptible person, tamed by flatteries. Nobody knows who he is. That's the other point, guys. Please note, he has no power before this moment. He has no power. That means it is pointless to look at an existing government or religious leader. No point. Don't bother, because it's wrong. He doesn't have power. You don't even know who he is. The world may not have any clue who he is until this moment in Daniel 11:21, and not before that. It's possible not one of us, even those who are looking or obsessed with looking at this and concentrating on it, will know. So don't bother. He will have no power before that. It's not going to be, I've heard it all, guys. It's Erdogan. No, it's not. It's Bashar al-Assad from Syria. No, it's not. It's some leader from the Iranian government. No, it's not. It's some Iraqi Shia, militia guy. No, it's not. None of that. None of the above. And certainly not a Jewish person. Sorry. Nope. Just can't be, because he has no power before that. That's why he's called the little horn, not the big horn, with lots of power, and everyone knows him. No power. All right, let's go 22 through the end of today, which is 25. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him, this final king of the north. With the force of the flood, swept away from before him and be broken. Also the prince of the covenant. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small people. Or a small number of people. Number of is not in the text, a small people. He shall enter peaceably, even to the richest places of the province. And he shall do what his fathers have not done. That means it's never been done before. Nor his forefathers. Never. And he shall dispense or disperse among them plunder, spoil, and riches. And he shall devise his plans against strongholds, but only for a time, or but for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against, here we go again, the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a great and mighty army, but will not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. When it says swept away by a flood, who is swept away by the flood? His opponents, particularly in Egypt, you would think, right? But anyone who is opposing him now was swept away by a flood. It's an interesting term because Revelation 12:15 describes a very similar moment and maybe another attempt at this by the same individual. What happens in Revelation 12? There's a flood of something that comes up from the mouth of the serpent trying to kill all the Jews. So against his opponents, against those who would resist him, against those who would claim he's not the rightful ruler, etc. But in verse 22, it works. Okay, he's going to succeed. God is going to allow that. When it says prince of the covenant or commander of the covenant or confederacy, this can either It means a previous leader of the kingdom of the north. Or perhaps, what covenant could we be talking about? It's certainly not the holy covenant. It's not Jesus, God forbid, or anything like that. It could be, though. There is a covenant in place now, an agreement between Israel and Jordan over what? The Temple Mount. It's called the Islamic Waqf. That keeps the status quo, where nobody can go pray, where the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa and the Golden Dome belong to Jordan and the Muslim people, right? That's a covenant. That's an agreement. That's in place. And he's going to try to remove that. Antichrist will do that. We know that because there has to be a new agreement. Verse 23. Now listen, this is where we know what time this is. It says, after the league or alliance made with him. That means it's other nations. He's getting other kingdoms to come alongside and join with him. He's making an agreement for a multinational coalition under his leadership. That could be the 4 kingdoms, north, south, east, and west, or even the 10 kings. Yes, the infamous 10 kings, because we know that's how the beast comes, with 10 horns. That's how the final kingdom comes, with 10 toes. And he gives them up. He says they have the same mind. God gives them over to the same mind for this hour, to give up their authority to this one as one entity. And by the way, there's still another entity right next door that doesn't sign on, but is right next door, which is Mystery Babylon. But that's not for tonight. Okay, so there's a league and alliance made with him. It has to be other kingdoms coming together. So it's multinational, multi-kingdom now agreed to be under his leadership. And when it says a small people, it says he becomes strong with a small people. A small people either means the 10 kings themselves, because 10 is a small number of people, or Israel herself. Why did we say that? See Deuteronomy 7:7. It says this: the Lord did not choose you, saying to Israel, because you were more numerous than other peoples, for you were the smallest. Literally, the small people. So, okay, now we're saying, what is this? Where is this league gonna do? Why is it formed? Who is it gonna agree with? Who is it becoming strong and popular with? Even Israel. Why? Because he will do what his fathers and forefathers have not done. What is that? That means then and only then. Only now. Only at this point in the chapter. Only at this point in prophecy. Only at this point, after all these kings of the north and so forth, only after all this happens, then will the covenant with many finally happen. The covenant with many, Daniel 9:27. The covenant with death and Sheol, Revelation 6:6, Isaiah 20. 6. With great fanfare, by the way, great celebration. The world will be in shock and awe. Because for centuries, the wars continued over Jerusalem, but now it's over. The issues of Israel, the issue of Jerusalem, and the issue of the Temple Mount are finally settled. Final status, as we often hear it referred to. The final status, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and Israel will be reached. All will unite in celebration. The reality is, this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the 70th week of Daniel. The 7-year clock can start. And I stressed when I says now and only at this point will it happen, because maybe many of you, I don't know, but so many folks are just waiting the next minute of, maybe today's the day when the Antichrist will sign the covenant with Israel. No, it's not. Just like you can't say Jesus is coming today, because he's not. You might be going to him today because you might die. But he's not coming back to the earth to rapture anybody. or for any other reason, because there's so many things yet to come. He told you these things would come. He told you there'd be wars and rumors of wars before he came. This is a preliminary sign, not the end sign, not the last sign. The last great sign would be the signs in the suns and the stars and the moon. And then before that, many other things, including the abomination of desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel. That's not here yet either. I mean, even where we're reading in verse 24, verse 25, this is not abomination time yet. This is the first half. The 70th week just begins now. And not till all the stuff we just read. If this radical future interpretation is right, there are many steps. It doesn't mean 100 years worth of steps. It means a few years, probably, before the 70th week of Daniel. But it doesn't mean endless years. It could be 2 or 3 or 5 years away. That's incredibly near, friends. What if you knew for a fact that this event was 5 years from now? I'm not saying it is, but it could be. Verse 25, what does it say? Why is he going again against the king of the south? Because they won't cooperate. He needs to dominate them. This is where his true colors start to come out. It says, against the king of the south, and he shall fall. Who? The king of the south will fall. Where else do we see this? This is the culmination now, the kingdoms of the north versus south. Jesus spoke of a sign called kingdom against kingdom. This is where it's fulfilled. Isaiah 19. And it happens in the first half of the 70th week of Daniel. When we say we're looking for the beginning of the birth pains, I say, hold on a second. We're not there yet. We ain't seen nothing yet. When we see these wars and rumors of wars end and the great kingdom against kingdom war begin, we ain't seen nothing yet. We ain't seen nothing to this point. We ain't seen even when Iran and Turkey go to all-out war in the very, very near future. That is nothing compared to what we'll see around Israel, not in Israel, because they'll be at peace finally. They'll have an agreement. But the Antichrist now will sweep down, and he's called a fierce king. A fierce king in Isaiah 19. And we'll cover that next week because we're going to stop here. Jesus directly quoted Isaiah 19, and Isaiah 19 has to do with Daniel 11 directly. And I'm going to get to any questions or comments you might have here as long as I can continue my voice. Radical info. Daniel 11:24 through 30, which we just started. Those verses, those 6 verses, are the first 3.5 years of the final 7. Not the first, not 1,000 years before the abomination, just 3.5. And then and only then can kingdom against kingdom come to pass. We can't, it's such a disservice to non-believers and to the church and to Jesus to say kingdom against kingdom is happening today. It's not. It's a specific prophecy Jesus was quoting, and we can't put it in history. We're not allowed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now as we close, we've covered the text. What I want to do is show you a couple of charts. And I don't want to say backup or justification, but just to show you why I believe it is correct and valid to strongly consider the radical futurist view. Here are some direct parallels of Daniel 8 and 11. Second kingdom, which is, remember we have 4 kingdoms in Daniel 7. The second kingdom, Persia, goes from east to west. Daniel 8, Daniel 11, match exactly. We have the third kingdom, Yavan, going from west to east. That's their attack direction. Daniel 8, Daniel 11, exactly the same. Four winds of heaven, Daniel 8, 8, four winds of heaven, Daniel 11, 4. The fourth kingdom then is formed after those four split up. Again, the fourth kingdom formed, Daniel 11. The little horn rises, Daniel 8. Final king of the north rises, Daniel 11. North, south, east, and Sibi. Sibi is the beautiful land, Israel. In other words, it happens in this exact order. And Daniel 8, the same thing is said in Daniel 11. It happens at the time of the end. Daniel 8, 14, 17, 26. The angel tells us that. Those are the time of the end. Of course, the end of Daniel 11, which we haven't gotten to yet, you will see this is at the time of the end. And then at the end, the Antichrist, the little horn, has no hand or no one will help him. And there's, again, no help in Daniel 11. So it's the same story, same character, same everything. So those are direct parallels of the two chapters. Here are parallelisms between this. What has to be the same character, okay, the same person. Daniel 8 calls him the little horn. The Daniel 11 calls him the king of the north. First comes Persia, then comes Yavan, then comes the four divisions, then come the wars of the little horn in Daniel 8, and the wars of the north and south in Daniel 11, then the time of the end, then the time of the end. So we have parallel ideas, then we have parallel events of the character, and then we have the same language. I'll get to that in a second. Well, we have a friend, Nelson Walters, right? Many of us know Nelson or know of him, have his YouTube channel. This is the 22 things, parallels that he has put together between the two chapters. Now, I'm not going to read them all, but here they are. This is to the ridiculous level now. Ridiculous level of I'm not that smart, but I know when God's trying to tell us something after a while, right? After 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 22 times. All right, just consider that. And here are some language links between Daniel 8 and 11. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are Hebrew similarities in both chapters. Again, how many were here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 similarities. Not similarities, the same words happen over and over and over in the two chapters. Okay, and here's the proof. This is from a gentleman named Jacques Duchan, who is a Jewish Frenchman who's a believer in Yeshua. He wrote a book called Daniel 11 Decoded, an exegetical, historical, and theological study. That's where he came up with all this Hebrew parallels, or same language in both chapters. All right, so we can't ignore this type of stuff and just say, well, one's kind of the same, or one's in this part of history, and that other part is in this, but they're really different. Here's Jacques Duhan again. He wrote another book called Secrets of Daniel, Wisdom and Dreams of a Jewish Prince in Exile. Listen to this. It is clear, this is Mr. Duhan, it is clear that the structure of Daniel 11 parallels the structure of Daniel 8. This means that the text of Daniel 11 will be clarified in light of its corresponding passage in Daniel 8. The events introduced in verse 5 of Daniel 11 come chronologically after Rome. So he's not seeing a fourth kingdom called Rome. This is after, and do not apply to the Hellenistic kingdoms of the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, as the traditional line of interpretation infers. The period covered by the conflict narrated in Daniel 11, 5 to 45 is therefore the same as that parallelism between, the same that covered by the little horn in Daniel 7 and 8, and by the toes in Daniel 2. This is already implied by the structural parallelism between chapters 8 and 11. The section concerning the little horn in chapter 8 matches the section concerning the north-south conflict in chapter 11. It must be added that the northern power, as described in chapter 11, has much in common with the little horn, even down to linguistic similarities. To wit, the king of the north challenges God and seeks to usurp him. Daniel 11, 36, 37. We haven't gotten there yet. In chapter 8, the little horn rises to the heavenly host against the prince of princes. The king of the north desecrates the sanctuary and abolishes the daily sacrifice. We haven't gotten there yet. While in Daniel 8, the little horn desecrates the sanctuary and takes away the daily sacrifices. The king of the north establishes himself in the beautiful land, or Tesivi, as an expression of symbolizing Israel, correct, and attacks the Holy Covenant, verse 28 and 30. Didn't get there yet. The little horn grows towards the beautiful land, same word, and destroys the holy people. Again, must be referring to the people of Israel. Like the king of the north, the little horn in chapter 8 originates from the north. Yes, he does. The king of the north and the little horn die the same death. The king of the north comes to his end without the help of anyone, as we'll see next week, and while the little horn will be destroyed, but not by human power. All right, so that's Nelson Walters, that's Jacques Duhan, and now how about Ellicott's Bible commentary on Daniel 11, verse 2? Listen to this. It has been customary from the time of St. Jerome, if not from an earlier epoch, to explain most of what follows in Daniel 11 as referring to the Ptolemies and Seleucidae. In other words, the descendants of Ptolemy and Seleucid, the very common explanation that we're told. These are the Greek, follow-ups to Alexander. These are the wars that they fought, etc. Between the Egyptian Ptolemies, etc., etc. The mere similarity which exists between certain things predicted here and what actually occurred in the times of the Ptolemies is not sufficient to limit the fulfillment of the prophecy to those times, still less to justify the assumption that the section before us is a history of what occurred from the disruption of the Greek Empire to the death of Antiochus. Just as Antiochus is a type of Antichrist, so the events and political combinations which preceded Antiochus may be regarded as a type or typical of what will occur before the coming of the Messiah and the general resurrection, with a prediction of which, in Daniel 12, this revelation concludes. What Ellicott, the commentary is saying here is just what we presented tonight, which is that history is not sufficient. The Ptolemy and the Seleucid sort of fulfillment doesn't cut it. And I know that some will disagree, and there's ways to go. And Mark Davidson has done a humongous book called Chronicles of the End Times, which has tremendous information about this. Feel free to check that out and expand your mind. But I agree with Ellicott here. I mean, I don't see how it's perfectly parallel, and we don't get historical fulfillment. We get a type. We get types. Yes, we get types in Ptolemy and Seleucid. Yes, we get types in Antiochus. Yes, but we also can see it's not the fulfillment. It's not the actual what it's talking about. A type is not the end. A type is not the fulfillment. A type is not what the angel told Daniel. And finally, one more commentary for you. Keel and Delitzsch Old Testament commentary on Daniel 11. Here's what they say. But the prophecy in Daniel 11 does not at all correspond to this representation of being fulfilled before Christ in the Greek and Roman, the Greek wars, the Ptolemies, the Seleucids, etc., Antiochus. It does not correspond to this reputation at all. The angel of the Lord will reveal to Daniel not what shall happen from the 3rd year of Cyrus, when he got this vision, to the time of Antiochus, no, and further to the resurrection of the dead, but according to the express declaration of Daniel 10:14, which is what we open with tonight. The express declaration of Daniel 10:14, which is what shall happen to his people. There it is, the messianic, in the messianic future, because the prophecy relates to this time. The messianic future meaning the return of Jesus, the end of the age of Israel. That's the express declaration of Daniel 10:14. So let me just repeat what this commentary is saying. Daniel 11's prophecy does not at all correspond to the representation of fulfillment before now, before the end times. Because the angel will reveal to Daniel not what shall happen from the 3rd year of Cyrus till Antiochus and then the end. Catch that, okay? He's not telling, hey, Daniel, this is what's going to happen from the king that you're sitting under now until the time of Antiochus, and then I'll tell you about the end times. That he didn't say that. He didn't mean that. He didn't intend that. It doesn't say that. None of that. But according to the express representation, the quote of the context itself, the foundation of what everything you just heard tonight, the foundation is 10:14. I can't get away from that. Some commentators can't get away from that. It's future because the prophecy relates to the future. And so I didn't think I'd be able to get through it to the end, and I have not. So next week we'll pick it up in verse 26. Where are we at? Through the end. All right. Let's get to any questions, maybe, that we have, if we can deal with it. I'm gonna defer, not defraud. I'm gonna defer to the End Time Church direct site, okay, and get my friends on here to ask questions first. The whole story of God is about his reputation, says Kim, keeping his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen. Questions. In English, the word Yavon matches the International Phonetic Alphabet transliteration, assuming pronunciation is correct. Okay, we're talking about Yavon. I'm reading about Maury Povich. We could be decades away from the 70th week. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. In other words, here's a kind of question. Jeff says, in other words, ram and goat war before Daniel 11:4. Yeah, because right, that's Daniel 11:2 and 3 is the ram and goat war. Daniel 11 has been the most confusing passage in the Bible. Can't really argue with that. There's Nelson. Right, we love Nelson. Sorry, looking for questions. In March 2020, honestly, I thought we'd be hurtling toward the 70th week in the midst of a horrible depression by now. Matthew 24 says all these things must happen in one generation, right? Okay, right. Mark chimes in with that useful tidbit, which is true. I agree with that. So I don't want to put out there like, I'm always trying to pump the brakes, guys, because most prophecy students are jumping the gun all the time about what's next or what's coming. The abomination is anytime. No, it's not. Right. All right. Let's see if I can get some YouTube or Facebook input here. Get the app, yes, please. James says chapter 11 and 12 of Daniel is where the rubber meets the road. That's exactly how I put it. That's right, Brother James. Oh, that's one that. Thanks for reminding me. Yah is my God. Whoever your given name is, I apologize. I don't know it. Iron mixed with clay. That is a potential statement on when we read about the daughter of Egypt going to the king of the north. Like, you could have two different races there. You're actually mixing possibly, like an Arab person with a Turkish person. I'm just saying, like, that would be, because the word there for in Daniel 2 about mixing with the clay, and that's Arab is the word. So might be a clue there. Blessings to you, David. Thank you. America is not Mystery Babylon. No, it's not. Okay, I'm sorry. I got a lot of one-word comments, and I don't know where to go with all those. Treason. I don't know. The radical interpretations seem to make the Great Tribulation to be decades and decades away. I hope I was clear on that. It doesn't. Well, I mean, first of all, do we want the Great Tribulation to start tomorrow? Like, are you sure? You might be careful what you wish for. But no, it doesn't mean that. It means there are events that'll happen before the tribulation starts. But that's a good thing, because Jesus will be glorified in that, because he told you all about it. We like to just skip right over the parts that seem uninteresting or like preliminary events and never, we just want to get right to the end. We skip hey, who needs the rest of the book? I'm going to go right to the end, the last chapter, and hope it makes sense. Well, it's not gonna. Right? I'm not sure what this has to do with Daniel 11, friend. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there tonight. Are there Daniel 11, 4 through 20 verses that are not satisfactorily fulfilled by Seleucus or Ptolemy? Yes. I hope we covered that. Yes, there are discrepancies. Absolutely. For example, right from the get-go, about the number of Persian kings. Jonathan. All right. Praise God. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. All right. I think we're good. All right, guys. Chew on it. Marinate on it. Take it before the Lord. If it's just too crazy or whatever, just go to the Bible about it. Go to the Father about it. Ask Holy Spirit's intervention. That's never a bad thing. Never. So the bottom line is, yes, there are very detailed, regardless of what we think about this chapter, there are absolutely many steps along the way. It doesn't mean it's decades away. It just means there are many steps. And, like myself, I get blue in the face, and Mark Davidson and a few of us are nonstop talking about, watching Iran and Turkey, because that is the next thing. You want to see what's next? That's next. Not the abomination, not the Antichrist, certainly not the rapture. It's Iran and Turkey. And then they fight, and then Turkey wins. Turkey dominates them, and then they split the whole thing up into 4 kingdoms, and then they have a bunch of fights again, and then there's kings, and then finally one arises that will put them all to rest, and then he's the one that makes the covenant, right? That's the story of the prophetic scriptures. Not just it's going to just happen, not just abomination tomorrow. No, we have a whole 70th week of Daniel to get through, and we have signs before the 70th week. That's the point. So regardless of what we think of this particular chapter and the positions that we put forth tonight, just give God the glory, give him the credit, and be willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. That's no problem. But at the same time, I do, you don't have to remind me about the scrutiny that as a teacher that I'm on worldwide, television or whatever right now, and thousands potentially. God, yes, please give us thousands of viewers and hundreds of thousands. But that increases my responsibility, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm going to stand before God for this sermon tonight. I'm going to have to answer for everything I taught. If anything was wrong, I'm on the hook. I know. I love you all so much. Next week, we'll finish out the chapter, Lord willing. Okay, so next Monday night, tell all your friends, share this, please. Give to the ministry. I didn't mention that earlier because I'm terrible at it. This ministry depends on your tithes and offerings. There's no other way. Yes, of course, the Father does it, but guess what? The Father does it through your donations. This costs money, everything you're seeing. So help us. The app, all that stuff. Support the who's doing God's work. If you think we're doing it, support us. We accept cryptocurrency. We accept every currency that you might want to use. It's no problem. Go to endtimechurch.com/give and get the app, and see you when we see you. But the point is, God is in control. He's always in control. He's going to allow these things to occur. Let's not lose focus. As a final thought, I think, please don't lose focus. Please don't get distracted about vaccines, about politics, about things in other lands that you can't corroborate, that you can't prove. Please stay on task, stay on mission, stay about the Great Commission, stay about the gospel, because that's all that matters, guys. That's all we're going to be asked about. What did you do with what I gave you? So till next time, friends, Pastor Manti for Anderson and Taryn and everyone else, we love you so much. Be blessed. Stay in his word. We need the Holy Spirit. Jesus, we need you. Till next time, guys.